If you want to invite a beaver for dinner, you better have poplar on the plate because he's not coming if you don't have it.
Hey, I'm John.
I'm Jamie.
We're telling North of 7 stories. Today we had a chance to go over and spend some time with Amos, our neighbor. He's a super interesting guy. He's a hunter, a fisherman, a trapper. Really epitomizes the term salt of the earth. So we're going to spend some time walking his trap line, and he's going to tell us a bit about living out here.
You know, we know that trapping is a controversial subject. Amos does too, I think, but I think he gives some really good reasons for, you know, why his family does it. Everything
out here works as a system. Amos is very much a part of that system. He's part of the natural order out here. And this walk with him was really informative.
He took a lot of time to share his knowledge on not just the animals in the area, but the history of the area as well. And it was a really great day. So why don't we go and take a look? If you like what you see, make sure to hit like and subscribe to get more videos of North of 7 Stories. How much of the history of this area would have rested on trapping?
In the early days, I would say the whole country was opened up because of trapping. In the Hudson Bay Company days and stuff, they paid men to travel through and buy fur off the neighbors. And so once it became a lucrative business, people could make a living. Well, a beaver being worth, or mink being worth $20 in the early 1900s would have been maybe equivalent to $1,000 now. I'm not sure. You'd have to do some. I got an old fur book at home that gave some prices that over the years, the high points of fur, and it's incredible. Like even one of the forefathers of people, this property around here, he would, when we were kids, he had books like on how to raise mink and how to even farm mink and stuff like that. Now I don't know if he ever did actually end up doing that, but it was things that people did because not only was there money in it, but even if you farmed them, you could have more like constant cash flow from that.
So a lot of people would have supplemented their winter income then with furs.
Sure, yeah. A fur buyer was, back then, like now we send our fur to an auction house, most people do, but back then the fur buyer would only come so many times through the season, or they would ship their fur out maybe on the rail line there at the Caladar, on the train, and they would get a fur check, and it might have been only cash. Like, talk to the old people here, like there wasn't money. So if you did get cash like that, it would definitely buy your stables for the winter, your flour, your sugar, all that kind of stuff, your grain. And
do you guys still find yourself using it much to supplement your own income, or is it more of like a hobby at this point?
Well, certain years, like it's probably been 5 years since we actually made profit off of trapping, but we definitely find it supplementing, how would you say it, like your competence to live. And even when you know you raised your kids up, that they can skin something, kill it, cook it, eat it, that's valuable. So that's worth more than the money you get from day-to-day for trapping, right? Over here we have a beaver house. I'm not sure you can see, but when he's done here, he's making part of a whole system that many animals depend on, and everybody else benefits from besides himself. So he's a major engineer and a major workforce. But what happens if this isn't managed? If nobody traps it, the beaver will overpopulate, and then instead of having a pond like this one has no beaver living in it right now. So when he's not living there, then in turn, the brush comes back. At about 18 inches a year, it grows, and then you'll have feed like this one. This is a dead stick here now, but you'll get young stuff like this, a young brush like that comes back live and healthy, and then when the beaver cleans up the edges of the ponds down there, and that's just another part of the work he does. He leaves open spaces for other grazing animals. But when he moves out of that pond, he'll move back up here to an empty pond. But that pond's not empty though, because nobody's been trapping, nobody's been managing the beaver. Now he's got nowhere to move, so now he has to stay in his own pond. He's gonna keep working up that hill farther and farther to get brush, and then the wolves are gonna come along, and they're gonna attack that beaver before he can get back to safety, and they're gonna overcome him, they're gonna kill him, they're gonna eat him, and that's part of that cycle. So if I come along here and I trap 2 or 3 beaver out of this pond, and I'm harvesting out of that pond, I know how many beaver are in that pond, and I take out 1 or 2, and that even leaves in case some get killed by prey or predators, and it keeps them healthy. They don't overpopulate, because once they overpopulate, they'll just literally strip the whole area of the brush and the timber. They can do a huge amount of damage, to the value of your timber and land owning timber. And then eventually they're just starved out, or they're killed off by wolves, and disease will take over and they die a pretty brutal death, actually, whether it's by wolves or by disease. So that's why it's important to keep trapping even when it's not profitable. You'll meet people out here on the line trapping, and different guys are doing this year round, and people go, why are you trapping? They're not in this for the money. They're in it because their line that they received maybe from their grandpa or their uncle or their neighbor, whoever it was that passed that line on to them, they took care of it and they harvested it and they managed it just like a farm or a garden or anything else. It's got to be weeded, it's got to be pruned, and it's got to be looked after. It takes work, and somebody has to put the money out. Like, all this equipment is expensive. So you spend $10,000 in equipment and you make $1,000 in fur, either you're crazy or you love what you're doing. That's it. That's why we do it.
Sounds like, from what you're saying, like you have a real love for the animals and the woods and, you know, the whole environment. How do you square that with hunting the animals, killing them, trapping them, and the obvious, you know, there's an inherent brutality to that.
Yeah, for sure. So when you trap an animal, first of all, you make sure it's humanely, and you know it's of necessity. Like, if I don't trap these animals, the wolves are going to kill them. Disease is going to kill them. There's a lot of parasites and beetles and stuff that's really way more brutal than what you know, somebody imagines, oh, poor little animal dies in a trap. Well, the poor little animal didn't just, he was humanely harvested in a trap. And so that's part of why we do what we do, but that's the way God made things. There's a food chain, and there's a management system here, and like if you read the book of Acts, it's told Peter, kill and eat. So we kill and we eat. People might see trapping as inhumane. They might see it as brutal. Let's go with the truth. Some people might say you're mean. Well, I don't know. I have a lot of people that pave highways to come up here to get where I live and be where I live. And I know they killed an awful lot of stuff to make those highways and put up those skyscrapers where they're coming from to get here. And I know they don't care or manage about their animals that they drive over on the way here with their automobiles to get here and sit on these lakes. But there's a reality of how you're going to manage something. What's the best way? What's the most humane way? And the reality is, if you don't manage it, it will all be destroyed. It will all be wrecked. There's way more inhumane ways to let things die than harvesting in traps. So, here's a prime example of management. So this is mostly balsam you can see in here. Beavers don't normally eat balsam unless they're like starving. So what happens is when a beaver, they come up here and they're selecting, this is ironwood, it wouldn't normally be their choice, but they normally go after the poplar and the birch and the maple. So after they keep selecting along these ponds, you'll see how the balsam grows up. It's just a natural occurrence because of the hardwood being cut down by the beaver. You can see all the little old stumps in there from years gone by. So as part of what we do, when we're logging on a piece of property and we see this balsam growing up like this, we'll actually just go in near a beaver pond. We'll take out whatever timber's harvestable, like this is all young stuff here, and I'll literally just drive the skidder over top of that balsam and all that stuff that's just junk to the beaver feed. It doesn't grow beaver feed. And that'll come back up with poplar, and it'll be like that for probably 20 or 30 years. That'll be all restainable feed for the beavers.
So they'll take poplar, but they won't take
They love
balsam.
poplar. That's their favorite food is poplar, yeah.
Oh.
If you want to invite a beaver for dinner, you better have poplar on the plate because he's not coming if you don't have it.
So through the summer, they come up here and they eat that brush. They cut the brush off and they drag it in there and they eat it. But through the winter, they can't get up on top of the ice. And if they do, they're wolf bait, right?
Right.
And so beavers, they're going to store up, they drag enough brush, put it out in front of their house or in the channel where they know it's not going to freeze down too deep. But they just let it float on top. So when it freezes in the ice, they just come in there and cut it off from the bottom of the ice. And they eat on that all year, and they put enough in there for the whole winter. And so we call that a feed bed just because it's full of feed or full of food.
That's really interesting.
And they get enough to get through the whole winter. And that's part of that whole scenario. Like, people look at trappers and say, why do you harvest animals? Well, why don't you phone a beaver and ask him why he kills trees? Because he needs to live. That's how he makes his living. That's part of what he does. It's part of the cycle. And if he didn't do that, well, then all these other animals wouldn't have anywhere to live. And it's just a whole cycle again of back to the drinking water and back to the way God made it. So even when you're looking for a bank hole for a beaver, you're looking for that coming out of the top of their house. Like if you go on that house on the ice, you'll have a steam hole there. When it's 30 below, it won't freeze up. Just the heat from the family of beavers and their moisture. And that one there, I thought it might be a bear den, but there's nothing in there.
Well, I gotta say, Amos is the only guy I know who'd be willing to stick his head into a hole that he thought might be a bear den.
Just to see if a bear was there.
We covered a whole lot of ground today. We have a lot more to share with you guys. In the next episode, we'll show you how to set a coyote snare. We'll talk about the importance of managing the coyote populations in this area, what they do to the deer and moose populations if we don't. We also talk a bit more about the importance of the management of the beaver, which, as we learned in this episode, is incredibly important.
If you don't manage the beaver, they lay waste to the hardwoods.
So we really hope you guys enjoyed that episode. If you want to see more next week, please remember to hit subscribe. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit like. And if you want to be notified, please remember to hit the bell at the bottom of the screen.